A hospital in Los Angeles, state-of-the-art machines running, but no medicine to fill the prescriptions. A conference in Washington, diplomats gathered, but every conversation starts with, has anyone spoken to India yet? Isn't it ironic? The same America that once said, no one is indispensable, now finds itself saying, we cannot move forward without India. And maybe, just maybe, this is the biggest victory for India. Not in wealth, not in territory, but in respect. Because a true power is not in forcing others to bow, but in making them stand in awe. The question now is, will America learn? Will they remember that you cannot build peace with walls and you cannot build respect with fear? Or will they once again forget this lesson till the next nation rises and reminds them history has a strange way of repeating itself, they say. And if America doesn't change, this humiliation might just be the first chapter of a longer fall. For now, though, the world watches. India stands tall, and America is left with a bitter taste of its own medicine. A medicine that, ironically, only India could have supplied. Some lessons are taught in classrooms. Others are taught in the marketplace of pride and pain. And today, the world's biggest superpower is sitting at the back of that classroom, listening to India's lecture in silence. What happens when the music stops and you realize you've been dancing alone? What happens when the nation that called itself the land of abundance is forced to live with scarcity? They say, if you want to know the strength of a nation, listen to its people, not its politicians. And right now, if you walk the streets of America, you'll hear voices they never thought they'd have to speak. A jeweler in New York sighs, without Indian gems, my shop is just 4 walls and empty glass cases. A pharmacist in Chicago mutters, we have prescriptions, but nothing to give. A mother in Texas wipes her tears. My child's medicine is on back order, they say, months. How can I watch him suffer? Is this the America we were promised? Is this the superpower we were told could never fall? Once they told their people, we will always have the best, the fastest, the strongest supply. But as one man in Los Angeles says now, we have money, but money is useless when the shelves are bare. The luxury streets of Manhattan still shine under neon lights, but their beauty is an illusion. Inside, the display counters are dusty, the jewelry case is locked, with nothing to protect inside. As one old shop owner whispers, a store without goods is like a king without a crown. Hospitals, once proud of their advanced technology, are discovering a truth they never respected. The machines can't heal without the medicine that fuels them. Doctors are writing prescriptions with heavy hearts, knowing their patients will walk out with empty hands. Who would have thought that the same India they once tried to push into economic corners would one day hold the keys to their survival? They say never underestimate a small flame. It can burn down an empire. And it's not just about goods, it's about the fact that America's people are realizing their leaders underestimated the very nation they depended on. One angry businessman says, we bullied the wrong country, now we're paying the price. The irony cuts deep. For decades, America told the world, we can live without it. And now the headlines read, America struggling to meet demand due to lack of Indian imports. They say, a wise man learns from his mistakes, a fool repeats them. And the question hanging in the air is, will America be wise or will it choose pride again over partnership? Ordinary Americans are starting to understand something their government ignored. Respect is a two-way street, block it. And both sides stop moving. Children in schools learning about a global trade are now hearing a different version from their parents. A son, remember, even the mightiest can fall if they disrespect the hands that feed them. Meanwhile, other nations watch quietly, some with sympathy, many with satisfaction. A diplomat in Africa is quoted saying, and now they know what we felt when they sanctioned us. An Asian leader smirks, power is not in punishing. Power is in knowing when not to punish. And perhaps that is India's greatest victory, not in gold, not in medicines, but in the silent message. That we can hurt you without ever firing a bullet. Now, America walks a fine line between recovery and further collapse. Every speech from Washington carries the undertone of desperation. Every business meeting starts with the same question. Has anyone spoken to India yet? They say, when the heart is broken, the eyes finally see. And maybe now America sees what it refused to believe. That no matter how powerful you are, you cannot survive alone. For now, the people. They wait for medicines, they wait for jewels, they wait for the return of normal life. But in the quiet corners of their minds, they also wait for something else. An apology, an acknowledgement, a whisper from their leaders saying, we were wrong. What happens when the loudest voice in the room suddenly loses its echo? What happens when the one who set the rules finds themselves trapped by their own game? They say, the higher you climb, the harder you fall. And right now, America's fall is echoing across every conference hall, every trade summit, every diplomatic table in the world. Once they walked into international meetings like kings. Once they spoke, and the world listened in silence. But now they speak, and the world. A European delegate whispers to his neighbor, do you see the desperation in their tone? An African leader smiles faintly. It feels good to see them taste their own medicine. An Asian diplomat chuckles under his breath, so this is what humility looks like on America. The G7 summit, America's pride stage, looks different this year. No bold declarations. No threats disguised as advice. Only polite requests, subtle hints, and eyes darting towards the Indian delegation. Have you noticed? Every time an American delegate finishes speaking, their eyes search for India's reaction, as if approval from Delhi now means more than applause from their allies. They say, respect once lost is twice as hard to regain. And America is finding the truth written on every face they meet. In a trade forum in Geneva, the Indian representative calmly says, trade is not a weapon. Use it like one. And one day it will be turned on you. The hall falls silent. Cameras click. And somewhere in the corner, an American aide bows. It's not just the meetings, it's the press conferences. It's the global media. The same media that once glorified America's economic dominance, and now running headlines like, America pleads for Indian cooperation. The superpower humbled. Trade war backfires, they say. The pen is mightier than the sword. And right now, the pen is writing America's humiliation for the whole world to read. Talk shows in Europe. Snowblade clips of American officials stumbling through answers about. Asian news anchors ask their viewers, should we trust a country that cannot manage its own dependencies? African journalists laugh openly. And now they know what sanctions taste like. Isn't it ironic? For decades, America used sanctions as a display of power. Now, the absence of Indian exports is a sanction they never saw coming, a silent strike that cuts deeper than any public punishment. And the worst wound, America cannot frame India as the villain. Because the world knows every action has an equal and opposite reaction. The tariffs were America's action. India's trade cuts are simply the reaction. In private, American diplomats admit that we underestimated them. In public, they say, we are in talks for resolution. But the eyes of the world see the same thing. The once mighty negotiator now sitting on the back foot. They say, if you want to know who truly holds the power, see who can walk away from the table. And in every meeting now, it's India, not America, that can stand up, smile, and leave without fear. The UN Assembly, usually a place where America lectures others, now feels like a courtroom, with America as the defendant. A South American leader stands and says economic respect must be mutual. An Eastern European minister adds a tariff war is not a victory, it's a mistake. And while they don't name America directly, everyone knows exactly who they're talking about. Outside the official halls, the whispers are louder. They're losing their grip. This is their wake-up call. India is playing chess. America is playing checkers. They say, power without respect is just an invitation for rebellion. And America, once feared, is now questioned not just by rivals, but by its so-called friends. For decades, they wrote the script. Now India holds the pen. And the world is reading a very different story. Because in the theater of global politics, the applause always goes to the one who stands tall when the curtain falls. And right now, America's still on stage, but India is getting the standing ovation. They will tell this story for generations. The story of the day the eagle bowed to the elephant, they say. History is not written by the strongest, but by the one who survives the storm. Once upon a time, America stood like a giant, its shadow stretching across oceans, its voice shaking parliaments, its decisions shaping the fate of nations. But every giant forgets one truth. Even the tallest tree falls when its roots are cut. And India cut the roots quietly. No armies, no battles. Just the silent closing of trade gates. Gates America thought would always remain open. They say, the power is not in striking first, but in striking last. And when India's strike came, it wasn't with noise. It was with stillness that screamed louder than any cannon. The precious stones that once glittered in American showcases, gone. The gold that once adorned the wealthiest of the wealthy, missing. The medicines that once flowed like lifeblood into their hospitals, stopped. And so the superpower that once claimed that we can live without anyone found itself whispering, and we cannot live without India. In the streets of Washington, frustration grows. A shop owner tells a reporter that they told us we were the strongest. So why do we feel so weak? An elderly man shakes his head. You can't eat pride. You can't heal with arrogance. They say the wound of the ego heals slower than the wound of the flesh, and America's ego is bleeding. Across the world, nations watch, some with sympathy, some with quiet satisfaction. An African minister says, this is not revenge. This is balance. An Asian leader nods. A lion roars loudest before it falls silent. The United Nations becomes the stage for the final act. The American delegate speaks. Polished words, rehearsed lines, promises of a new cooperation. But when the Indian representative rises, the air changes. He says simply, we do not seek to weaken others. We seek to be treated as equals. And the hall erupts in applause that drowns the rest of the session. They say, a true respect is not demanded. It is earned. And at that moment, the world knows India has earned it. The legend grows. Children in Delhi are told at once our nation stood up to the most powerful country in the world, and we did not bow. In small villages, old men sit under banyan trees, smiling as they recount, we gave them a lesson without firing a shot. Even in America, the story spreads, though in hushed tones. A teacher in Boston tells his students, this is why diplomacy matters more than dominance. A columnist in New York writes, perhaps we have more to learn from India than we think. They say empire falls not from the strength of its enemies, but from the weight of its own arrogance. And maybe America now understands the truth. The final image is clear, the eagle, wings lowered, no longer soaring above all, but circling carefully, aware of the elephant that walks the earth with steady, unshaken steps. And as the curtain falls on this chapter of history, one quote lingers in the air, a whisper carried across oceans. In the game of pride and patience, patience always wins. They thought it was just trade. But trade is the heartbeat of nations. Cut the heartbeat and even the strongest will fall silent. They say, and never start a fire you cannot control. And America started one, a 50% tariff fire thinking India would burn. But India became the rain. And that rain didn't just put out the fire, it flooded the empire. The world's richest jewelers in America, their showcases are empty. The hospitals, their medicine cabinets are dry. The luxury stores on Fifth Avenue, their gold has lost its glow. What is a superpower without supply? What is pride when your own people suffer? America's newspapers whisper the truth now, with shortages across multiple sectors. And talks with India remain stalled. Economic pressure mounts on Washington. They say, anything except respect. And right now, America's money cannot buy what India holds in its hand. Across the oceans, the world is not just watching, it's reacting. A diplomat in Europe says they have learned the taste of their own medicine. A leader in Asia smirks. The day you disrespect your supplier is the day you lose your crown. Even inside America, whispers grow louder. A businessman says, oh, we thought we controlled the game. Turns out we were just another player. A mother says, if only, they had thought before they acted, my son would have his medicine today. Power without wisdom is like a sword without a handle. It cuts the one who wields it. And America, bleeding from its own grip, is finally realizing the weight of that blade. India hasn't raised its voice. India hasn't threatened war. India simply closed the doors and let silence do the talking. They say the strongest chains are not made of steel, but of need. And America's needs have become India's chains, invisible, unbreakable. This is not just economics. This is not just politics. This is a lesson that will be told in textbooks. Respect is not a courtesy. It is the foundation of survival. A lesson that will be repeated in speeches. The day you underestimate your partner is the day you overestimate yourself. And a lesson that will echo in boardrooms. Trade wars are not won by shouting. They are won by standing. They say, The legends are not born in victory, but in defiance. And India's defiance has now become its legend. Look at the stage today. The eagle sits, wings folded, calculating its next move. The elephant walks forward, steady, unhurried, unstoppable. Because as slow is smooth and smooth is fast. And so, my friends, this story is more than politics. It's a reminder to every person, every nation, every leader, if you respect others, they will stand with you. If you don't, one day you will stand alone. Now it's your turn. Tell me, do you think America will ever learn? Or will history repeat itself? Drop your thoughts in the comments below because your voice matters in this conversation. If this story opened your eyes, if it made you feel the power of standing tall, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Let them know. No one is too big to fall, and no one is too small to rise. And before you go, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss the next chapter of history we uncover together, because this was just one battle in the endless game of pride, power, and patience. They say the future belongs to those who tell the story. Let's be the ones who tell it and never let them forget it. Sometimes the loudest cries are not heard in war zones, but in quiet homes where mothers pray for medicine. Sometimes the greatest pain is not losing a battle, but watching the ones you love suffer in silence. They say, nation is not just its buildings and borders, it is its people. And in America today, it is the people who are paying the price of arrogance. In a hospital corridor in Boston, a father sits with his head in his hands. His little girl needs a life-saving drug, a drug that used to come from India without delay. The doctor's voice is gentle but cold. I'm sorry, there's a shortage. It could take months. Months for a child who may not have weeks. What is the worth of a superpower? One nurse asks softly, if it cannot save its own children. In New York, an old woman walks into a jewelry store where she has bought every family heirloom for decades. The counters are empty. The shop owner just shakes his head and says, no shipments. Everything is stuck. Her eyes fill with tears, not because she cannot buy gold, but because she knows her country has lost more than shine. It has lost dignity. They say pride fills the stomach of the ruler, but it leaves the table of the people empty. And the tables in many American homes feel emptier today. Not for lack of food, but for lack of hope. In Chicago, a small business owner who once imported fine stones from India now stares at closed crates and dusty shelves. He tells a reporter, they called it strategy. But how can it be strategy if it destroys the lives of your own people? And here is the bitter truth. This is not India's victory. This is not America's defeat. This is the world's reminder, when nations fight with pride, it is the innocent who bleed first. They say you cannot hug your children with clenched fists. But America's hands have been clenched too long in threats, in tariffs, in power games. And now those same hands are empty when their people reach for help. In Texas, a mother looks into a camera during a local news interview and says, I don't care about politics, I just want my son's medicine. Her voice cracks, her words break, and yet the people who could fix it remain silent behind closed doors. What is leadership? A school teacher asks his students if you can't protect the very ones you lead. Meanwhile, in India, the story is told differently, not as revenge, not as punishment, but as self-respect. If you let someone walk over you once, they will never stop, says a shopkeeper in Delhi. And the world nods because deep down, everyone knows this is true. This moment will be remembered not for the shortages, but for the lesson. And a respect is not given because you are powerful. Respect is given because you are fair. America will recover. The shelves will fill again. The medicines will return. But the scar of this moment, the memory of the day when the strongest nation bent under its own pride, will remain. And perhaps one day when another leader somewhere in the world thinks of placing tariffs or sanctions out of arrogance, they will remember this chapter and stop, because you don't have to be enemies to destroy each other. You just have to stop respecting each other. So if you're hearing this, I ask you, don't just see it as a story about two nations. See it as a reminder for all of us in our families, in our friendships, in our work. If you remove respect, you remove the foundation of everything that lasts. And to you watching this now, if this story touched your heart, share it so others can feel it too. Tell me in the comments, do you believe pride is worth the price of human suffering? And if you want to hear more stories that speak to the heart and not just the headlines, subscribe so we can keep the truth alive together. Because they say history remembers the battles, but the heart remembers the pain. And this is a pain the world should never forget.